Please, God, try to forgive those people, because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them, just like you did those folks a long time ago when they said terrible things about you. Ruby Nell Bridges. Through her bravery and determination, she helped stop segregation in the school environment. Our story starts off on September 8, 1954, in a small town in Mississippi, where a little girl named Ruby was born. Little did that little girl know that in 6 years, she would be the first of 4 new African American children to walk into an all-white school. In 1954, when Brown versus the Board of Education occurred, school laws implied that every school must be integrated. However, it took as long as 6 years for that statement to come into action. New Orleans was forced by the government to let every African American child take a test to determine who would be able to go to school with whites. Most of the white population in New Orleans most definitely did not want the blacks going to school with their children, so New Orleans attempted to make the test hard enough that no child could pass, meaning none of the black children would be able to go to school with whites. Fortunately, 5 children passed the test, and 4 would be starting school for the coming school year. The 4 children going were Ruby, who was going to Franz Elementary, Gail, Tesley, and Leona were the other children and would be attending McDonough School. That school Ruby was to be attending in mid-November 1960 was called William Franz Elementary and became the first of many schools in the South to have an African American child walk their halls. In August, when the school year came around, instead of Ruby starting to attend every day, state legislators slowed down the process and took her case to court. As well as slowing down the process, the legislature passed 28 new illegal anti-segregation laws in the state of Louisiana. The set day Ruby was to walk the halls of France for the first time was November 14, 1960.
Not really understanding what was going on at the time during the Civil Rights Movement. My parents didn't explain anything to me. I always say to people that it would be really, really hard to explain to a 6-year-old child what I was about to encounter going to school that day. So the only thing that they said to me is that you are going to go to a new school and you better behave. And that was the extent of it. So I had absolutely no idea what was happening at the time.
I say for the mothers to keep their kids out of school all together. We're white people. We don't want them to go to school with niggas. I have 5 and they not going to school with no niggas.
Getting picked up from her house and walked into school, Ruby would be escorted by federal marshals every single day to ensure her safety. Every day, walking into school, Ruby would be confronted with mobs, protesters, and people holding signs with unencouraging words. Instead of giving up and going back to her old school, Ruby marched into school like a little soldier every day, never missing a day in the whole school year. Even if Ruby had to go to the bathroom or walk outside the classroom for some reason, the marshals would have to escort her because there were so many people outside and people might barge in and hurt her.
"25 federal marshals taking her into that building. What would you expect? You'd expect that a child going through that would pretty soon start developing symptoms and be in trouble. I waited and waited, and there weren't any symptoms, and she kept going and learning and being the Ruby that she was.
Ruby wasn't allowed to go outside, eat lunch with the other students, and when the end of the year approached, she had never even met another child. Instead of recess, Ruby and her teacher would stay inside and play games and do jumping jacks, not go outside and play with the other children.
They didn't see a child. They saw change in what they thought was being taken from them. They never saw a child.
Some days, people would come around bringing little coffins filled with small black dolls representing Ruby as the dead girl. That one thing that mean white people would do was the only thing that ever scared Ruby or made her worried. Even though that memory would scare Ruby, she never let anyone see behind her expression. People around the country were hearing her story and sending gifts and letters to try to support her through the rough times of proving a point for the African American community. The whole year of 1960, Ruby spent her time learning in her class of 1 with her teacher and soon-to-be loving friend, Mrs. Barbara Henry. Mrs. Henry was one of the only white people who ever was truly nice to Ruby in her process of becoming a student at Franz Elementary.
A picket line, a mob every day for a whole year. They were all white, screaming, yelling, threatening to harm me. And yet every day when I entered the building, there was a woman there to greet me, and she was also white. And I remember not really knowing what to expect from her, if she was going to be exactly like the people outside. But she did everything she could to make my day filled with fun. And I loved learning. She not only taught me, but she read stories to me. We played games and we did music and everything.
As winter approached, slowly more children attended school at Franz because they got tired of waiting for Ruby to give up. 4 other first-grader students began school as well, but these schools still kept Ruby separate from all the other students. When the school year of 1961 approached, after the long year of 1960, Ruby walked into her classroom accepting Mrs. Henry and the empty desks. But to her surprise, when she entered, there were no mobs outside and at least 20 other students in the classroom with Ruby ready to learn. School was finally desegregated.